What's up, NAIA Report Nation? It's your boy Manny here, and welcome back to the Fast Break, episode number 21, as we're going to recap this past Wednesday night's slate of games in the KCAC women's basketball world. Obviously, we will be posting our game day previews tomorrow morning. Obviously, I'm recording this on Friday. Tomorrow morning, Saturday, as well as our game day on our Instagram. I think you guys took a liking to the new format, so I'm very excited to continue it and help grow the coverage for KCAC women's basketball. Great games on Wednesday. A lot of interesting outcomes. We're going to touch on all 7 of them. We will start with Avila versus Evangel. Evangel comes out with the victory. I had them 15 plus, but ended up only winning by 1 point. I think it was more of an Avila performance than anything else. Obviously, post-game, Coach Wallace for Evangel mentioned it wasn't a pretty game for Evangel, but you're going to have those. You're going to be tested in some nights where you can't hit shots. You're not getting calls. The ball's not bouncing your way. Or on the other end of it, the other opponents are getting the calls. They are getting these friendly bounces. They are getting some great shots to go down. So you can't be too mad at it. It's going to happen for Evangel. 72 points, definitely not what they are normally accustomed to putting up. That's why I say I think it was more of an Avila performance. For you to put up 71 on the road against the number 1 team in the conference, the number 22nd team in the country now, I think is very impressive. For Avila, 19 points for Madeline Melton in 33 plus minutes. You also had 14 from Marley Wright, and along with 9 rebounds for both ladies and 5 assists for Wright. Off the bench, Kylie Corkston, she put up 13 points on an efficient 4 of 6, 4 of 8 from the free throw line. The team shot for Avila about 45% from the field, 35% from a three-point line. They had contributions across the bench, across the game, really. 36 paint points, 14 points off turnovers, 12 fast break points, 22 points off the bench, 14 second chance points. Like, they were having a very, very strong game. So that's why I don't think if you're an Evangel fan, you should be, distraught or anything like that or concerned moving forward. I mean, they did what they normally do in Evangel. 15 from Carson Dillard, 14 from Heaven Shockley, along with 3 rebounds for both ladies. Then 10 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists for Cassidy Hamilton. Again, when you play the style that Evangel plays, it's going to be normal for you to have off nights. I think, which is crazy for me to say, but I do think this was an off night, even though you shot 36% from the 3-point from the field. 23% from the 3-point line is obviously what I'm pointing to in the sense of not the greatest shooting, 6 of 26, but the 90% from the free throw line at 10 for 11 is very, very impressive. You're still able to control the paint for the most part. 38 points in the paint, 20 points off the turnovers, 23 off the bench. So again, everything else was on par with what Evangel normally does. Not maybe to their standard, but what they normally do. The only thing that really stood out was that 3-point line. And again, when you play the way they play, you're going to have these types of nights. You'd rather have them at the midway point of January than necessarily towards the end of January going into February. So really good game for Avila. Again, this is probably Evangel's first scare of conference play. Not necessarily scared, like I said, not necessarily scared of like concerned, but hey, just a refresher of this conference is very deep. This conference can be unpredictable at times. And if you do not plan to go into each game controlling what you can control and just kind of banking on certain other aspects, it can come back to hurt you even if you are at home. I think Evangel did a good job at that, at controlling the controllables, understanding that the jumpers aren't always going to fall. The ball just sometimes doesn't like you on certain nights, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that we can't come out with victories, because as they move closer to conference tournament time, they're going to get a lot of these. It's hard to be at the top for as long as they have in the conference. So you got to expect some things to kind of start going against you, but that's okay. That's why you prepare the way you prepare in practice. If you're Coach Wallace, you put your players through certain aspects, through certain situations, so that when you are presented with those in the moment, you're able to come out with the victory. Now we're going to head over to McPherson versus Kansas Wesleyan. This game was kind of what I expected. Kansas Wesleyan, I had them winning by 8. They won 86-55. They obviously dominated this game from the start to finish. The first quarter was mainly the calling card, 21-7 in that first quarter for Kansas Wesleyan. The next 2 quarters were decided by 2 points and by 4 points respectively, but Kansas Wesleyan still came out on top. And then they rounded it out by winning the fourth quarter 26-14. They did not lose a single quarter this game, which kind of shows to the dominance that they had. 20 points for Mason Galima for McPherson, though. She had a very good game, but nobody else crossed over 6 points in that contest. Over 10 points. We had someone else went 9 off the bench. I mentioned it before, even though Kansas Wesleyan was struggling going into this game, 3 of 6 in their last 9, I just did not feel like they had McPherson had the ability to match Kansas Wesleyan on either side of the ball, whether it was defensively with the way that they're able to make you uncomfortable, whether it was offensively. Again, even though they have struggled, they are still one of the better offensive teams in the conference, especially when they're hitting and they're having a good night. For some individual players, obviously last video I talked about Odessa Ozuna, who's 4th right now in the conference in assists. In this game, she finished with 12 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, almost had a triple-double in this one. Jocelyn Hall, 18 and 10. Very impressive performance for her in only 19 minutes, so very efficient 19 minutes. I think that deserves a round of applause for sure. Again, 18 points and 10 rebounds, throwing a block, throwing 2 steals, an efficient 8 of 13, only 2 trips to the free throw line. So she did her work in the flow of the game. She did her work throughout the contest, so very impressive for her. Very good game overall. I also mentioned Anna Juman, who kind of has not turned a corner, because I didn't want to use that phrase in the video, in the previews that we talked about last week, but it does feel like she's finding a little bit of a stride here. She's now tied her season-long streak of at least 10-plus points in 3 straight games with this one, 14 off the bench for her. She's fitting into that 6-woman role, and I think if she's able to continue to do that, she is going to be the X factor that tends to hit for Kansas Wesleyan, and then that is where things start to open up. Again, Kansas Wesleyan's defense has been pretty impressive all year. It's the offense that I've always kind of raised an eyebrow at. Not because it's bad, more so because I think it should be better. So when you're able to have 5 players in double figure scoring, you're able to have 2 players with double doubles, because you also have Reagan McDonald down there with 13 and 12 for her. Give her a round of applause. She did in 14 minutes of play. So again, it was just a dominant performance for every Coyote that stepped out there on the court. A great win for Kansas Wesleyan, especially in this tight playoff contest, especially at the bottom 4 spots for the conference tournament. I'm very excited to see what they can build off of this from. This is a win that, if you use it right, can set you up for a nice little winning streak here. Again, now you move to, in your last 10 games, moving to 4-6. Not the greatest record, but you're only 1 game below 500 in that. If you're able to continue to do that, I think you're looking at this Kansas Wesleyan team turning a corner as a team, and maybe getting some momentum now heading into the back end of January. Now we're going to talk about St. Mary versus York. I had St. Mary by 12. St. Mary ended up winning 82-54. St. Mary, they're impressing me, man. I'm not going to lie to y'all. There's something about this team that I really, really like, and it is on the offense side of the ball. 31 points in the first quarter to York's 5. Another situation where I just thought York did not have what they needed to really be able to match up with this team. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. They're straight cooking our St. Mary in that kitchen, whether it's on the road, whether it's at home. Something about this streak now that sits at 6 in a row really is impressive to me. I've said it before, elite offense has been paired with a pretty solid defense. I'm not going to sit here and say that's an elite defense, but I'm not going to say that it's a defense that they can't win on. I do think they're winning a lot of these games on the back of their offense, but the defense has allowed that to happen. I don't care how much of an offensive team someone will say that their team is, or say that's where they really focus on in terms of the game. If you have a defense, that will it's always going to go hand in hand, because if you have a really solid defense, not great, not elite, but just solid, it alleviates some pressure from your offense. And vice versa. If you have an offense that's good enough, now your defense is what you really are focusing on, it alleviates some of that pressure. You want to be able to have a healthy balance for sure. No team in the country, no matter how good you are, no matter if you're the number 1 team in the country, is a perfectly 50-50 team. You're gonna lean one way or another, even if it's by 1 percentage point. And I do think St. Mary's leans offensively, but I've seen some things on their defense that has really opened my eyes, and I'm excited to see what's going to continue to happen. The reason I do say, the defense can be a little hit or miss, they did lose the second and third quarters to York 13-11 and 16-12. But again, offensively speaking, they put up 31 points in the first, 28 in the fourth. That's why I'm leaning to this team offensively. Something about it just works, and I'm excited to see it continue to work and how long they can continue to make it work. In the video before, I talked about a few players that I think, should be or could be big, in this game. Abby Windett was one of them, as well as Addison Towers. Addison Towers had 13 points. You also had Sage Crampgrass, who was one of the X factors that I talked about. It could be her. It could be Keely Bernard. Sage, she went 11 points, 10 rebounds. She had a nice little double-double for her. Keely Bernard had 12 points. So again, when both your X factors hit, you're going to have a great night, and that obviously is represented in that 80-point plus performance for the team. Abby Windett, she had a quiet 2 points, not really a big factor for her offensively in terms of scoring, but she did have 3 assists along with 2 rebounds and a steal off the bench. Summer Winkett, she had 15 points with 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Good performance for her. So now you add in a third possible X factor, especially when Abby doesn't have the contest she's expected to have or typically has. It shows the depth offensively of this team. And that's what I'm always going to say too, especially when you look at the minutes played. And that's a very niche stat to look at. I don't know how many people are really looking at minutes played if you're not a coach at this level. No one crossed over 25 minutes. And the reason I say this is because in terms of quarter, that means no one played more than half-ish of the game. You know what I'm saying? Obviously 10-minute quarters. If you play 20 minutes, you played, no matter how that's divvied up. If you finish the game 20 minutes, that means you played 2 quarters. So the only person who played over 25 was Sage, who played 28, right? Everybody else played either pretty much 2 quarters or less. That's impressive. And I don't even throw Sage in there. I mean, 28 minutes, obviously it's closer to 30 than it is to 20, but it's one person. That's one person. I think that's a very, very underrated aspect of this team from a minute standpoint. If you're able to keep the load low and still put up 80-plus points, that lets me know that your offense is clicking and that you are all on the same accord and you're continuing to move in that right direction. The St. Mary's team has really become the scariest team in the conference, like I said before. And when I say scary, I just mean I don't want to play them because I might run into a buzzsaw of an offense that can't miss on any given night, that is getting every bounce on any given night, that is making my defense have to work extra hard for one possession, let alone 2, 3, 4 with offensive rebounds, with being able to get stops when they do get stops in transition and push and get some easy buckets like that. St. Mary's is going to be a very, very, very tough out in the postseason. I think that their ceiling, the floor actually for St. Mary's, is a second round semifinal appearance right now. And I'm getting very, very, very close to saying they can make a conference championship berth this season. Now we're going to talk about Southwestern versus Friends. I had Friends winning by 15 plus. They ended up winning 87-66. Another great offensive performance for Friends. 21 points in the first quarter, 25 in the second quarter, 21 in the third quarter, 20 in the fourth quarter. Another matchup where the offense is just too much for one team to really be able to take under control. The biggest thing for me, still no Raylan Garner in this one, so I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that to see where when she does come back. We still have everybody else did play. Lauren McIver, Abigail Barr, Reagan Bugay. They all played. 23 points though was Katie Weiss. She led all scorers in that department. 8 rebounds along with 17 for Lauren, and then 10 for Kiki Peeler with 5 rebounds to boot, as well as 8 assists for both of those ladies that I just mentioned. Off the bench, you had Reagan with 15. A dominant game in the sense of the rebound department, I feel like. 36 for the Friends Falcons, 30 for Southwestern. 6 rebounds might not seem like a big margin, but if you're able to get that notch, I think that is a good thing to do, and you give yourself a little bit of extra cushion. From a turnover standpoint, they definitely had the advantage there, 11 to Southwestern's 18. At the end of the day, though, like I said, it was the offense. I just don't think Falcons were going to be able. I just don't think Southwestern's going to be able to keep up with the Falcons. It's just from an average standpoint. Friends, and that's before I even mentioned that Friends is on a really good streak right now, offensively speaking. It's a very good game for them, just kind of continuing in the right direction. Friends is now ranked in the top 25. I love that for Friends. I think that's very. I said it before in our episode that dropped earlier today. It's a good showing, and I can appreciate the committee for doing that. Obviously, they'll always get criticism for when they get it wrong or for when when people feel like they got it wrong. But I'm also, as much as I'm here to hold them accountable and whatnot, I'm also here to give them their flowers when they need it. And I'm glad that they gave Friends that that number, not just receiving votes and high in that category, but number. I do think they have played as of late like a top 25 team. Can they go up? We'll see. But I love that they're in there. And I love that they've gotten some love on the national scale. We'll see how much longer this streak can continue. I talked about St. Mary offensively focused. Friends is the same, but it's the same, but for Friends it's more 50-50, more offense and defense. But I still would say offense is maybe 51-49. I think offense, the way I talked about the depth, how it's been clicking, how everybody has contributed, and this is without Rayland. I'm very excited to see how this team is going to continue. And I'm very glad that this team has kind of found their footing. And again, they're a perfect example of, and they're not the only team in the country, but they're obviously the team that we've talked about the most about this. One game can change it all. You win that Columbia College game, sets you up in the break. Now you're kind of marinating on it. You're processing it. You're thinking to yourself, hey, we got something special here. And now it's turned into a very nice, very sturdy winning streak going into some of your big games here in the KCAC soon, including tomorrow. Another game, Ottawa versus Oklahoma Wesleyan. I had Ottawa by 5. Ottawa ended up winning 56-50. Very tight one. I said it before. Ottawa has to take advantage of this one because this is the one of few games left that they were going to be the favorites in, because moving forward, including this Saturday, they are not going to be the favorites in a lot of these contests. And for a team that's fighting to get into the playoffs, along with the teams like Tabor and Kansas Western who are already in it, you got to take advantage of these. They did a little tighter than they probably wanted it to. Really did that on the backs of that second quarter, 26-10 for Ottawa to win that one. And again, when you're playing against a team like Oklahoma Wesleyan, who's playing with house money, obviously, I don't know if they're officially out of playoff contention just yet, but they have nothing to lose. Their season has an expiration date. Those are the teams that you got to really be more scared of than the teams at the top or the teams in the playoff, because those are the teams that they're playing like it's their last game, because their last game was getting a lot closer than some of the teams' last game are. For Ottawa, a few players that stood out for me: 15 points by McKinley Kruger, and then 10 points off the bench for Kaina Holster. A very, again, offensively, it was not a great game by either team. More of a gritty, grinded out type of game, and I think that does favor Ottawa. They've had highs offensively, they've had lows as well. But if you're able to come out with these type of wins, I think it's actually a morale booster, a momentum booster, just because it helps the ladies see, like, hey, even if it's a tough night shooting the ball, they shot the Braves 45% from the field, 33% from the three-point line, so it wasn't a bad by the number standpoint, but just from in terms of converting, I think that's what, you don't really see the 45% from the field, but then only 56 points. That normally doesn't happen like that. But if you're able to still win games like that, it's very good and a very good boost for the locker room when you are going to be presented with those situations again in the future, whether regular season, postseason, whatever the case is. You're going to have a lot of these games. You got to have ugly wins. It felt like some of these wins on Wednesday were ugly wins. Ugly wins are what build character. Ugly wins are what put teams in position to be playoff teams and have a playoff push. So very good win for Ottawa, and we'll see if they can able to continue that moving forward. Next game, we're going to jump over to the last two games that we're going to jump over to: Tabor versus Bethel and Sterling versus Bethany. Now, both of these games, I went with the upset pick. I went with the underdog pick. I went 1-1. I went 1-1. Very close to going 2-0, if I'm being honest with you guys. I had Tabor over Bethel. Bethel 164-62. Very tight contest. Very playoff-like I mentioned it would be. I'm very excited for what this means for both teams. Obviously, I do think Bethel needed to win more, but I just felt like Tabor was going to come up with the upset. They didn't, but it was very, very close to happening. You look at this game. It was down to the last possession. Obviously, Kendall Locke, big three to give her team the 2-point lead, which ended up being the game winner. That was ridiculous. I'd call it a prayer. Obviously, I saw that live. I was able to catch that last little bit of the game, and wasn't the greatest drawn up play. I'm 100% sure that wasn't the play call. But sometimes, you put, like I've said before, big time players make big time plays, and you put the ball in your best player's hands. You put the ball into a first team all conference player's hands, and you live with the result. You live with the result. Kendall Locke comes in, her only 3 of the game. I know that one's going to be hard to hear for all those Tabor fans out there. But I think this is one of those games where everybody wins. Everybody wins this game because for Bethel, you come out with the actual victory. You come out, with we talked about friends. This could be a game that rights the ship a little bit. And I say right the ship in the sense of not that it's sinking or anything like that, but not what it was at certain points of the year. And I think they were able to hold it for those stretches throughout this season. So I do think they want to get back to that, especially this close to conference tournament. So I think they come out with a very much needed win. Needs the wrong word. A very much usable win to get them all back on that same page. I mentioned Locke. Kendall. She had 19 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, and obviously the game winner. And then her sister, Carly Locke, had to kind of one up her a little bit. She had a double-double, 14 and 10 with 3 assists and 4 blocks. Also had 13 points from Madison McKenzie. The big 3 for Bethel do what they do best. For Tabor, the reason I say they win, let this be an example that this Tabor team can compete with the best in the conference. This Tabor team has the depth. They have the offense at times. They have the defense every time to be able to give themselves at least a chance. And I think that's always been the mindset that a lot of these coaches and a lot of these players should always have. You're not going to win every game. I can be favored to win every game. That's fine. But you want to compete in every game. If it comes down to the last possession, as far as I'm concerned, it's a coin toss. It's a coin toss. And especially that. I mean, again, Kendall just threw up a prayer. I'd go as far as say that was a one-handed push shot from a three-point line. She cashed it. She cashed it. Sometimes you got to just tip your hats off to a really, really great player, really elite player making a crazy play. You know what I mean? But to put them in that situation, to put that Bethel team, for the record, they needed the 3 was the only way it was going to win. You know what I'm saying? Like and again, she had to put up a prayer. Like Tabor did their job for 39 minutes and 59 seconds. It was that 1 second that, it came out to be in favor of Bethel, but this Tabor team is going to be a tough playoff out. I think they're probably, ceiling is probably a first round if they get there, but at the same time, they might be one of the teams that make it closer than they need to. And I'll continue to stand by the philosophy, honestly, at this point. If you give teams like Tabor confidence, you give them momentum, you give them opportunity, they will take it and run with it. That's how they got themselves in that situation. To be in the lead on the road, up 2. Not up 1, not tied, up 2, forcing Bethel to have to, well, I don't think we're going for the win, but the only way you get the win is like that. I know the Tabor fans, the players, even the coaches, I'm sure the coaching staff in that locker room afterwards singing the praise of the team and what they were able to do, how they were able to fight, how they were able to put themselves in that situation. Obviously, even the coaches know in that moment it's hard for the players to really understand that and really let that sink in and understand. And again, I get that, I understand it, but I hope today, 2 days now past it and getting into your getting ready for your next game, they're able to understand like what they have in front of them. They have a really good opportunity to do something special. It'll be a game-to-game situation for sure, but when you've got a Lily Veers who's putting up 13 points, when you've got an Adrian Hazelwood who's putting up 11, along with Tayton Smith who's putting up 11 and 9, this might have been one of the more impressive games for Tabor I've seen all year, and it gets me giddy and it gets me excited for what's going to happen on Saturday. It really does. Game of the day. To wrap up this episode of the Fast Break and head y'all into the rest of your Friday and into your Saturday. Every now and then, I get excited. I get excited calling games. I get excited with the predictions. I've said it before. I don't know a lot of basketball. I know a little bit. I know a little bit of basketball. I don't know a lot. I looked at this game on Tuesday. I thought to myself, Bethany Sterling at Sterling. Sterling's a better team. Sterling's at home. Sterling needs to kind of get this. This is probably their first real test since losing to St. Mary. I thought to myself, I said, it's Sterling. The numbers say Sterling. I bet you if I throw in any of those analytical stuff, any analytics would say it's Sterling. They've got the best player on the court. But at the same time, we always understand how basketball works. Basketball is a game of momentum. It's a game of runs. It carries possession to possession, quarter to quarter, game to game, month to month sometimes. And when I looked at Sterling, they had momentum of pressure. Like, they're playing for, some of these teams in the conference are playing for a conference championship. Sterling is too, but they're also playing for a national tournament berth. Like, there are some teams that across the country, yes, the conference tournament is the goal, but they also know that they are able to compete at the national level, and they want to get to that national level. And those teams that will separate those teams from the other teams are the other teams know the only way to get in is with the conference championship. So that's why you're playing for that. But Sterling, they could get in with the at-large bid. They could get in with an auto bid. The second one, obviously, if certain things happen. So all that is to say, it should have been Sterling. But then I look at Bethany, and I've been on that train since that Ottawa game, really. Something about this team, y'all. Can't put my finger on it, but I love it. I love the way they play, the energy, the fun that I see out there. I'm going Bethany. I'm going Bethany by 1. I thought to myself, I said, we're due for an upset. Sometimes you got to expect upsets. It's part of the job. It's my job to know the upsets are coming before y'all even think about the upsets that happen. And this is one of the ones I got right. Now, this was an upset shocker to me because that score was not what I thought it was going to be. 83-68. Bethany with the win on the road. This is at that point in the season now where I look at Bethany and I say, whoa, is this more than a puncher's chance? Does Bethany have something to really make a case for here? Has Bethany gone from a team that if they're hitting their shots and whatever it is, and getting some nice bounces their way, get out the first round, maybe get past the second round, have they gone to now a team that if the brackets break right for them, hold on, is Bethany about to make a run at this? Like, that's what it feels like now. For Sterling, it was the definition of an off night. 25 points was the leader for the team, and it was NAIA Johnson, who off the bench had also 9 rebounds to go along with it. The big 3 for Sterling, Carly, Callie, and McKenna, combined for a total of 17 points. It was not the game that Sterling expected to have. And this has been my thing with Sterling all year. I love them. I love what Coach Belk is doing over there. I love what the ladies have been doing on the court. It is a lot of fun to watch what they are building over there. But my concern has always been if the big 3, and judging by how the fact that McKenna played 6 minutes, gets me a little worried because I know what that could mean. If the big 3 don't have their averages, what can Sterling do? They have depth. They have the ability to do certain things. But without the big 3, not even, I said before the numbers, they're putting up, like, I think 70% of the offense, maybe a little bit lower, but it feels like 70% of the offense. If they don't do that, do close to that 60, 55%, can they really compete offensively? And I think this is the perfect example of that because over on Bethany's side, Colby has 26, Becca has 12, Lillian drops in a 20 ball, and then you also have 12 off the bench for Ray Richardson. Complete depth showing here. And when you look at the box score, the other thing that kind of jumps out at me is when we talk about the depth, Bethany has been, I've called them the Cinderella team of the KCAC. Cinderellas are built on depth. They're built on the backs of a deep run by a team that just on any given night, you'll have your main players. You'll have your Colbys. You'll have your Lillians, your Beccas. You'll have those players. But you'll have players that you didn't peg Ray to go in for 12 points. And again, people might say 12 points ain't that much. 12 points off the bench feels like 20 by a starter, especially when she shoots 50% from the field in 25 minutes. 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, no turnovers, no fouls. I guarantee you her plus minus at least plus 20. At least. Bethany, with this win, drops the puncher's chance title for me. They're now a dark horse contender. They're now a team that if the playoffs break right, they get favorable matchups in those first 2 rounds, you'll blink and they're in the semifinals. You'll blink and they may have just snuck into the conference championship game, y'all. And they've competed with some of these top teams now. Not just Sterling. They competed with Evangel. Yes, it was a blowout win, but again, bigger picture. They've competed with some of these teams on the road. Not just at home. On the road, they've been in tight games. They've been in blowout games. They've been able to close out games. They've been in comeback games. They've been in every type of game in this run in the conference. I am driving the bus for Bethany. They're not my picks to make it out of the tournament. I'm still rocking with Evangel probably for the rest of the season until I prove it otherwise. But I am on that Bethany bus. If we get a conference championship matchup between Evangel and Bethany, I'm going to be torn down the middle, y'all. I really am. Because the basketball brain in me knows this Evangel team is different. But my heart, my basketball mind is going Evangel, but my basketball heart, ooh, you can't tell me you don't love what Bethany is doing right now. You can't. This is a lot of fun. This is what we talk about when we say college basketball and what it can bring out of people. I know those ladies in that locker room are having a great time. It's tough nights, tough days, tough practices. It's the dog days of the season right now, in the longest month it feels like of the season in January, where every game matters, every possession matters. You got coaches trying to instill the importance of attention to detail to their players. You've got players trying to stay as ready as they can be while minutes fluctuate and certain things happen. Like, you got to deal with class. You got to do. The only day off for students during January is MLK and I think spring break in later in March. Like, I don't know how many more days off we have. You know what I mean? Compared to the fall. It's strictly ball and school, y'all. And that's hard. But at the same time, you've heard the cliche, the healthier team wins at the end of the year. That's true. But I would throw in the other team that normally wins is the team that has the right momentum and the right vibes in their locker room, that are playing together, that have done it multiple times now. I told y'all, when Bethany first started this run, I said, it's cool. It's great games. But I had to see it. Is it a fluke? Is it lightning in the bottle? We've surpassed it, but this is not a fluke now. Yes, are they supposed to be one of the top teams in the conference? No. On paper, you go Evangel before them, you go Friends, you go Sterling before them, you probably even go St. Mary's before them. So maybe Bethany's really your 5th best team in the conference. Don't tell them that, though, because they're playing like they're the top 3 team in the conference. And I'll pull up the standings right now. There's a world, like we're looking at something happening here, because in the standings right now, and I'll probably mention it again in the episode when I record it later for the previews, we've got Evangel at 11-0, Friends at 10-1. St. Mary's has now jumped to 3 at 9-2. Sterling's dropped to 8-3. Bethel's now 7-4, tied exactly with Bethany, who's 7-4. Kansas Wesleyan 6-5. Ottawa 5-6, tied with Tabor. Avila's at 4-7. Then you've got McPherson at 3-8, and then Oklahoma, Western New York, and Southwestern round out the bottom 3. This thing is as tight as it can be, y'all. I can't emphasize this enough. This might be one of the tightest conference races I've seen across the country. You know what I mean? And we're getting closer to that second round of play for the KCAC. Some teams won't play each other. Some teams will play each other 3 times. So things are only going to get even crazier. But Bethany now is tied for the 4th seed at 7-4 with Bethel. And I don't know who else thought that was going to happen at the beginning of the year. I don't know who else thought that was going to happen as this run continued. But Bethany has captured the hearts of the KCAC world, and I think they have a lot more fans than they realize, just from a standpoint of we love these stories and we want to see them continue to do it. But now it's become more than just a Cinderella story, y'all. This is a team. This is a real playoff team that if you don't give them the respect that they've earned at this point, they will have no problem making you pay. No problem making you pay. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Fast Break. Hope you guys did enjoy. Hope you guys enjoyed the content in the KCAC. It's been a lot of fun covering it. I be honest with y'all, didn't really watch too much KCAC ball before this. I thank the commissioner. I thank the entire conference staff that allowed us to be partners and has given me a just new love for the KCAC, putting the light on it for me and just basically saying you're gonna love it and it's gonna be a lot of fun. They undersold it. They couldn't have told me how much fun I was really gonna have watching this. And don't care how late it is, don't care how early it is. I enjoy making these videos for y'all. I enjoy looking at the box scores every night. I enjoy seeing who won, who lost, what happened, who played well, who didn't play well, all that kind of stuff. It's been a lot of fun. And once we get into the back end here, with some of these games really going to come down, some of these seedings really going to come down to 1 or 2 games, it's only going to get more exciting and more intense. But that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.